Going to resume with evidence. You may call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state calls Lin Ferguson to the stand.
Good morning. Welcome. Stop right there. Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear that the information you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead and take a seat here. Witness stand. Make yourself comfortable. And when you do get comfortable, if you just spell your name for the reporter, please.
The chair doesn't go up any higher. Oh.
Could you just spell your name, please?
Lin Ferguson, Lin Ferguson.
All right. And you might want to move the microphone back a little bit. There you go. Thank you. All right. You may proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hello, my name is Lin Ferguson. Christian Ferguson is my brother, my older brother.
Lin, I want to direct your attention back to the years of 2001, 2002, and 2003. Okay?
Okay.
Specifically, I want to talk to you about interactions you had with Christian during that time.
Okay.
Do you know somebody by the name of Dejuan Ferguson?
I do.
And who is that person to you?
I call him my sperm donor.
Do you see Dejuan Ferguson in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you please point to him and describe what he is wearing?
I can't see that far, but it looks like he's wearing either a black or a dark navy blue kind of suit jacket and some kind of blue tie over a white shirt with glasses.
Your Honor, I would ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Dejuan Ferguson.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you. And Christian Ferguson was your brother, correct?
He is my brother, yes.
At some point, did you live on St. Vincent with Dejuan Ferguson and your brother Christian?
Yes.
And then at a later point, did you live on Sylvan Place with your brother Christian?
Yes.
When you lived at Sylvan Place, where was your bedroom?
Closest to the front door with a window that overlooked the front.
Did you share that room with anybody?
Yes.
Who?
Christian.
Who else had bedrooms on the first floor?
Everyone except, well, I'll say Tia and Deshonda.
Did they each have their own rooms?
Yes.
And then was there a bathroom on that first floor as well?
Yes.
And then did Dejuan and Monica live in the basement?
Yes.
What year were you born?
1994.
And when was Christian born, if you know?
1993.
Do you guys have birthdays that are close in time to each other?
Yes.
And what month would that be?
October.
So you were 1 year younger than Christian?
Almost.
Can you describe to the jury what Christian's physical appearance was like after he had suffered his coma in 2001?
For most of my memory, he was very, very thin, extremely, to the point at which you could see the notches in his spine. You could see his pelvic bones. You could see his bones basically through his skin. He was very skinny.
Do you remember a time in your childhood where you would be able to play with Christian?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
would that have been before he had his coma in 2001?
Yes.
And describe what you and Christian would do or how you would play.
We watch Pinky and the Brain. We'd play Rugrats through the CD-ROM on the computer, or through the computer. Things like that.
Could Christian walk and move around?
Yeah, he's more active than me.
But all of that changed after January of 2001, correct?
I don't recall the dates. I was so young.
Do you remember when Christian was in the hospital for a long period of time?
I do remember that happening.
Do you remember how long he was in the hospital?
No.
Would you describe it as a short amount of time or a long amount of time?
A long.
Weeks,
Amount of time.
months?
To a child, I guess it would seem as though it was months.
When Christian was in the home on Sylvan Place, where would he be all the time?
Tied up to the bed in our room.
And what do you mean by tied up to the bed? Can you describe that to the jury?
Yeah, there was a comforter that was usually tied around his torso, around his abdomen area, and it was tied with a knot behind the bars of the bunk bed that was at times split apart. So he could not get away from that bed or from that cross-legged position.
So at one point, did you guys have bunk beds then? Am I following along correctly?
Yes,
And then at some point, did they become two separate beds in the room?
yes.
And at the time that Christian was reported missing by Dejuan, were they separated?
At the time, at what time?
When Christian was reported missing by Dejuan, were the beds separated?
Yes.
Now, you talked about how Christian would be tied up to the bed. Was there anything that you remember in your childhood during this time period where Christian would be left alone at the house?
Yes.
Can you describe that to the jury?
There was one situation, we left the house, and it was dark outside, and I remember all of the lights were out in the house. They were turned off. It's dark in the house, and I even remember asking, is Christian still in there? And we went to the Renaissance Hotel, which I called, I think, the Black Hotel back then. And I remember it vividly because we ate burnt burgers. Yeah, we were just supposed to be having fun while he was at the house, to my knowledge, strapped to the bed in the dark.
Were there any other adults that were left with him?
No, not that I know of.
At some point during this time period with Christian, there were nurses that would come and take care of him from time to time, correct?
Yes.
But in the evenings and over the weekends, there were no nurses in the
Objection
house.
leading.
Hold on a second. Yeah, sustain. Just restate your question, please.
Would nurses be in the house in the evenings?
I don't recall when the nurses would be there.
Would you have to feed Christian at times?
The only time I remember trying to feed him, I would say no. I would say no. The only time that I remember trying to feed him was the night of June 10th, June 11th, 2003 or so.
Would you ever try to clean him up?
Yes, I had to.
And why would you have to?
Because no one else did it. We lived in squalor. I
And
begged him.
how was Christian's appearance when you felt like you had to clean him?
I mean, he was disheveled. He was usually wearing nothing but a diaper that was soiled, and I would do the best of my ability to change those. And at certain points, put clothes on him, but at other points, I guess I just figured that it wasn't even something that was necessary since he was in the same situation day in and day out.
And how old were you at this time?
I had to be like 7, 6, and then even 8 years old.
You mentioned earlier to the jury that you could see Christian's bones, essentially, correct?
Mm-hmm.
During the springtime leading into summer of 2003, did you notice a difference in Christian's physical appearance?
Again, time frames escape me because I was a child and I didn't really have a concept of time that I do now. But I remember for the majority of the time that he was mentally disabled to the extent that he was after the coma, that he just looked completely the same. I mean, just like horribly skinny. I remember even his face looked a little contorted, a little different than it used to be, you know. He almost looked like everything physically was changed about him because of what happened.
Lynn, I want to talk to you about the day of June 10th leading into the next morning of June 11th. Now, you were a child at that time, correct?
Yes.
And did you share a bedroom with Christian at that time?
Yes.
Did Christian have a G button or a feeding tube?
He usually did.
On June 10th, during the day, was Christian's feeding tube in him?
No.
When did you notice it was missing?
When I first noticed him.
And tell the jury about that.
I mean, I don't know where I came from that day. I don't know why it was the first time I was seeing him, because this is from so long ago, but I do remember vividly coming into the room and seeing him. There was dried blood next to where his G-tube was supposed to be. It's like a drop. And his G-tube was, of course, missing. And I looked around for it, couldn't find it, desperately looking for it because my child mind thought that there was something wrong. And
Did you tell anyone?
Yes.
Who'd you tell?
Monica,
What, if anything, did Monica say?
that she already knew.
Let's talk about how Christian appeared on that day, the day that his G-tube was missing. Was there anything unusual about Christian's physical appearance or demeanor?
Yeah, he was moaning, he was groaning the entire day. Seemed that he was in immense pain.
Was there anything unusual about his eyes?
Honestly, don't recall.
This moaning, this groaning, what you described as immense pain, did that continue from the day leading into the night?
Yes.
And in the middle of the night, were you in the same bedroom as Christian Ferguson?
Yes.
Did anyone come into your room that night?
Yes.
Can you please tell the jury about that?
Dejuan came in with Monica, took Christian into the other room, which was known as the TV room. And you could only see a sliver of that from my room. I don't think they knew that I was awake. And seemed that a struggle ensued. I heard,
Now, you could not see into the room, correct?
yes, that's correct.
So can you describe what you heard that makes you think that it was some sort of a struggle?
Well, his moaning and groaning got more intense, it seemed. And then all of a sudden it stopped after some kind of struggle. I don't know what those noises were exactly, but it seemed like a struggle of some kind. And then it just stopped.
And then what happened after the moaning stopped?
I feel like I heard a whimper from Monica. And then later on, I don't know how much later, he was brought back into the room. Monica, I remember, was standing in the doorway, kind of crying, looking at him. And he didn't seem like he was doing it. He clearly wasn't doing anything he was doing before. If I look back on that memory, it seems that he was gone at that point, no longer living. But because I couldn't hear him breathing, I couldn't see him moving. He wasn't moaning and groaning anymore. But as a child, I don't think I really understood that.
At any point after Dawan put Christian back in that bed, did anyone enter the room again that night?
Yes.
Who?
I know Dawan came in and took Christian and a comforter and took Christian out to the car.
Was it dark outside?
It was still dark.
Did you ever see your brother Christian again after that?
No.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Thank you, Judge. Can I just do this real quick?
You may, yes.
Good morning. So Lynn, the last time you actually spoke with Dejuan, you were about 11 or 12, is that right?
I believe so.
Okay. And you have no relationship with Dejuan?
That's correct.
And at the age of 14, you went into foster care?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. May we approach?
You may. Hold on one second, okay? You good to go? All right. So the objection is sustained. You may ask your next question, please.
Thank you. Lynn, let's go back to June 10 into June 11th of 2003, okay? You definitely saw Christian live on June 10th of 2003.
Is that a question?
Yes.
What's the question?
You definitely saw Christian alive on June 10th of 2003.
Sorry, it's just worded weirdly. I'm sorry, what was the date?
June 10th of 2003.
Yes.
And before Christian went missing, you were a happy kid.
Definitely not.
No? Okay. So your testimony here today is that you were not a happy kid before Christian went missing?
Yes, that would be my testimony.
After Christian had his coma in 2001, there were home health care workers in the house Monday through Friday.
So it keeps sounding like you're stating something to me. Could you ask that again?
After the coma in 2001, Christian's coma, there were home health care workers in the house Monday through Friday.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. So your testimony here today is that you don't know if you had home health care workers in the house?
At that specific time period that you're stating, no, I don't know anything about that.
But you lived with Christian, correct?
Yes.
And The home health care workers would give Christian food and medicine.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to speculation at this point. She's already made it clear she doesn't know anything about the nurses. Asking her a series of questions about what they did would then just be speculation.
Yeah, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Dejuan would give Christian his food and medicine, correct?
I never saw it that I can recall.
So your testimony here today is that you never saw your father give Christian food and medication.
I don't recall.
You don't recall, okay? When your dad was home from work at night, he would give Christian food and medication.
I don't recall that happening, to my knowledge, no.
So you're saying you did not see your father give Christian food and medication?
No, I rarely
Hold
saw
on a
him.
sec, hold on, ma'am.
Asked and answered.
Yeah, the objection is sustained. I think the jury has heard the question, heard the responses. Let's move to the next topic, please.
Christian would eat by his mouth, and he also ate by his G button, correct?
I don't recall seeing him being fed, so I couldn't answer that for you.
So, again, your testimony here today is that you did not see Christian get fed?
Yes, my testimony is that I did not see him be fed, or given medication, and more specifically by Lin Ferguson.
Okay. And Christian was an active child and would get into things he shouldn't get into, right?
At what point?
At the house with you. When you
No, I'm
see-
saying at what time period? Because, I mean, he was active before the coma, but after that, no, he wasn't.
Okay, so you're saying after the coma, your testimony is he was not an active kid that would get into things?
My testimony is that he was not active after the coma.
Okay. And Christian would sometimes pull his G button out.
I've never seen that.
Okay, so your testimony again here today is that you've never seen Christian pull his G button out.
That is my testimony.
And your brother Christian had pica, where he would put items in his mouth that weren't food, correct?
He did put things in his mouth that were not food after the coma.
Okay. For example, he would pull off his diapers and eat his diapers.
I do believe so. He also, I do believe so.
Okay. Now, in July of 2018, you went to the police with a new statement, correct?
A new statement?
You went to the police and gave a statement.
I did go to the police.
Okay. And this is a different statement that you've never told anyone else before.
How so?
Well, your statement here today is that your brother was in another room, you heard struggling and moaning, and then a whimper, correct?
Yes.
And that's the statement that you told the police in July of 2018.
It sounds to be so.
Okay. And you talked to the police multiple times in 2003, correct?
I don't recall.
So, in June 11th of 2003, you told the police that Dawan came into the room, picked up Christian, put him in a blanket, and took him out to the car.
I don't recall.
You didn't tell them anything about him taking into another room and doing something to him.
I don't recall.
In November of 2003, you talked to a special agent named Liza Ludovico. And you told her that Dawan came into the room, picked up Christian, put him in a blanket, and took him out into the car. You didn't tell her anything about taking him into another room and doing something to him.
I don't even know who that is, so I couldn't say that I recall.
You would agree that those statements are different than the one that you gave the police in July of 2018.
I wouldn't actually. It seems that they're exactly the same, save for additional information that you're claiming was not present in previous statements. So it sounds the same to me.
Now, back in 2018, the police didn't call you to get a statement. It was your idea to go to them.
I'm going to object. Are there questions here?
These are,
I'm wondering the same.
Hold on a second, hold on. So, Ms. Steele, you seem to be reading from something, and they're not really formed as questions. So why don't you ask the witness questions? So I'll sustain the objection, rephrase your question, and make it a question, okay?
in 2018, the police did not call you to get a statement from them, correct?
I wanted to give them a statement, if that's what you're asking. They didn't ask me to give them a statement.
Okay, so it was your idea to go to them, correct?
Yes.
And you said you did that because something clicked, correct?
When did I say that?
When you talked to the police in July of 2018?
Can I see something that reads that?
Before you went to the police in July of 2018, you told your mom that you were going to go give a statement to the police, correct?
Could you reword the question? And is this, are we leaving the last question about something clicking?
Yes, I moved to another question.
Okay, so can you restate that one?
When you went to the police in July of 2018, you told your mother you were going down to do a statement, correct?
Yes.
Now, in 2004, you were interviewed by a lady named Martha Finnegan for a Children's Advocacy Center interview.
I don't recall.
You don't recall that? Okay. And back in 2003, you had a lot of conversations with your mom in regards to Christian's disappearance, correct?
Yes, I'm sure we did.
And your mom would audio record those conversations with her, correct?
I do recall a few conversations being recorded.
And sometimes at the conversations, I believe your mom's then husband, Victor Thomas, was present for some of those conversations, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. But Dejuan was not present at those conversations, right?
I don't recall, but I don't believe so.
Okay. And your grandparents were not present at those conversations, right? Dejuan's parents.
Oh, no, I don't recall. I don't believe so.
And
Tim, is somebody's phone going off, or? Okay. You may continue.
thank you. In those conversations with your mom that was audio recorded, your mom would often ask you if you could see Christian's bones, correct?
I don't recall that. I do recall divulging that information, though.
And as I stated, yourself and your mom had several conversations in 2003 over a span of months, correct?
Time would have escaped me as a child, so I can't say I recall the time period.
So your testimony here today is that Dejuan was not taking good care of Christian, correct?
Yes.
But you told your mom in 2003 that Dejuan was actually taking good care of him
When?
in 2003 in
Where?
the audio conversation.
In a who conversation?
In one of the conversations with your mom that she recorded.
I don't recall that.
Okay. So your testimony is you don't recall telling your mother that.
Yes, that would be my testimony.
Okay. And your testimony here today was that Christian G button wasn't in when you left for school?
When?
On June 10th of 2003, that day.
I don't know where I was going or where I was from, whence I was coming. I just know that his G-tube was missing.
Okay. Your testimony here today is also that Dejuan used to tie Christian up to the bed, correct?
Yes.
Well, you told your mom in 2003 that they actually don't tie him up to a bed, correct?
And where is that?
In the audio conversation with your mother.
Again, I don't recall that being the case.
Today, your testimony here was that Christian never had clothes on, correct?
I didn't say that. He never had clothes on.
Okay. Your further testimony here today was that when you told Monica that Christian's G button was missing, that the response was, "I know."
I already know.
But in those conversations with your mom in 2003, you told her, when you told Monica that the G button was missing, she said she didn't know.
I don't recall any of that.
Your testimony here today also is that Dawan and Monica did not give Christian food and medicine, correct?
Can you restate that?
Yes. Your testimony here today has been that Dawan and Monica did not give Christian food and medicine, correct?
No, my testimony is that I did not see.
You
Didn't
didn't.
give him medicine or food. And I actually did not say anything about Monica in that regard, but I'll go ahead and include that as well.
Okay. Your testimony today on direct was that Christian was taken into another room and there were no more sounds and you heard a whimper and you thought that he was gone, correct?
If you can consolidate it into that kind of a statement, I mean, yeah, I mean, those things happened.
But you told your mom in 2003 that they took him into another room, brought him back, and he was still moaning in his sleep.
I thought you said earlier that my testimony had no inclusion of that other room.
I don't.
I recall.
You never told your mom in these conversations that Dejuan took Christian into another room and did something to him.
Can you ask that again?
You never told your mom in these conversations that Dejuan took Christian into the next room and did something to him.
That would seem to be false, what you're saying.
So you're saying you did tell your mom that?
Yeah, I told my mother that something happened to Christian.
You told your mom that he was taken into another room and killed?
Well, I didn't even say that to you, so I don't know where you're getting that from.
You're saying you told your mom that Dejuan took Christian into another room and did something to him that involved struggling and moaning noises? Okay. Judge, permission to enter Defendants Exhibit 1.
I think you all need to approach. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. You may proceed as we've discussed on the side here.
Thank you, Judge. One moment. Okay, Ms. Ferguson, you okay?
I just burped.
Oh, okay. As I had stated earlier, you remember having audio recorded conversations with your mom back in 2003, correct?
I do remember audio recorded conversations.
With your mom?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I have a transcript recording of one of the conversations that you had with your mother.
Mhm.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, and you mean a transcript of the recording?
Of the
correct?
recording,
All right.
yes.
Yeah, you may approach and show, give a copy of the transcript to the witness, please. Ms. Schlesinger, the state agrees that this is an accurate transcript of, for the purposes of this examination, of the phone call or conversations that occurred between mom and Connor Ferguson, correct?
Yes, I reviewed them.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
why don't you direct the witness's attention to certain page and line numbers and ask your question.
So the pages are front and back. If you could go to page 3. And go down to line numbers 20 through 25.
Mhm.
You found it?
Uh-huh.
So I had asked you earlier that your testimony today was that Dejuan was not taking good care of
Hold
Christian.
on a second.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again, improper. We discussed this at the sidebar. She's to read the specific lines and then ask yes or no.
Okay.
You've already asked the question, so go ahead now and ask the witness if this is, if you read this accurately. So, ma'am, if you'll, the counsel's going to read from the transcript. If you would read along, and she's going to ask you to confirm or deny whether she read it accurately at the end, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right,
Okay.
you may proceed.
Thank you. So your mom had said, let me tell you something, let me tell you something. You need to do all that you can to let me know anything that you will. Do you about do know about Christian? Okay. How was your daddy taking care of Christian? Your answer was good. And then on the next page, your mom said he was. I mean, well, then why did you tell me about? And then you said better than before. And then she said, oh, better than before? Okay. And your answer was real good.
And
Is that-
ma'am, did counsel read that correctly?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I also want to draw your attention to page 15. And it is line 10 through 17.
Okay.
So your mom had said, so they keep him in that bed all the time? How do they keep him in? Do they tie? How do they keep him? And you responded, no, they don't tie him. They let him roam free in his bed, but there's a little hole, and he doesn't know how to. Sometimes he knows how to get out of the hole, but sometimes he doesn't. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And then I'm going to draw your attention to page 19. And it is line 17 through 18. Oh, I'm sorry, 15. Down. Your mom asked, did you tell anybody the G button was out? And you responded, I told Monica, and she said that she didn't know, and then it ends with mom, she. Did I read that correctly?
That's a weird way to end it. Yes.
All right, you can go ahead and take the transcript back.
One moment, sorry, Judge.
It's fine.
Your testimony here today has also been that Christian was very thin, could see notches in his pelvic bones through his skin.
That's not exactly how I worded it, but yeah.
Okay.
You can see notches in his spine, and you could see his pelvic bones.
I had asked you earlier that about a conversation you had with Special Agent Liza Ludovico, and that would have been in November of 2003. And I believe you said you didn't remember that lady.
I don't recall that woman or the conversation.
Okay.
Spoken to many people throughout my life.
Do you recall ever speaking to a FBI agent in regards to your brother's missing?
No, I don't.
Okay. So is your testimony here today is that you've told other law enforcement agencies that you could see Christian's notches and pelvic bones?
I don't know what I've told other law enforcement agencies.
So your testimony here today also is that you were left home alone.
When did I say that?
Or that, I'm sorry, Christian was left home alone.
Yes.
You never told your mom that in the recordings in 2003?
Again, I'm going to object. This is improper impeachment. She's asking about things that don't exist. Therefore, this witness can't properly be impeached.
Judge,
The prior statement.
It is impeachment. This is testimony that she gave here today.
It is not impeachment. There's been nothing in evidence where that demonstrates this witness did not tell mother something.
Yeah, because I told her
Not-
plenty of things.
Hold on a second. You've not established that, okay? So we have the answer. If you have something later which contradicts that answer, then we'll talk about it then. But the witness has answered the question, so we'll just proceed. So the objection sustained.
On the morning that Christian went missing, back on June 11th of 2003, police officers came to the house on Sylvan, correct?
I believe so. I know there were a lot of people there.
Okay. And you spoke with the police officers that morning,
I spoke with the people in my living room or in the TV room.
okay, which were police officers.
I mean, as a child, I didn't know who they were. So, I mean,
And you spoke with them when they came to the house that morning, okay?
yeah.
And you did not tell the police officers about your brother having an appearance of skin and bones and pelvic bone showing,
Your
correct?
Honor, I'm going to object again. One, counsel's testifying. There's been no questions. And two, we just discussed, so she's asking her about absence of evidence.
The objection sustained. Next question, please.
When you spoke with the officers at the house that morning, you did not tell them, well, I'll rephrase it. Did you tell officers that morning that you heard a struggle in the other room and then you heard nothing else?
I don't recall what I told officers, as I've stated before. I recall what seared into my brain that night.
Nothing further?
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Ferguson, You were approximately 8 to 9 years old when all of those conversations defense counsel just asked you about took place.
Yes, I was.
Do you remember every conversation you had with every person about your brother Christian during those years?
I certainly don't.
Did you talk to lots of people about what happened?
I almost feel like lots is an understatement.
Ms. Steele just showed you a couple clips from an audio recording with you and your mother, and you read those and acknowledged those statements. Very briefly, was there a reason why you would tell your mother that Christian was being cared for and fed by his father at that time?
Yeah, the same reason that I told DFS on many occasions what he wanted me to tell them, because I was being abused.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Any, you may. All right, so you ready to go? So it's my understanding you did have one more question to ask.
And yes, it is a clarifying question. Lynn, I'm talking about at the time when you were talking to your mother, when we are talking about at that point about concerns or fears, you are not talking about the defendant, Dejuan Ferguson, correct?
I'm sorry, could you restate that?
When you were having those conversations with your mother after Christian was reported missing,
Uh-huh.
Which were recorded.
which were recorded, yes.
Okay.
And we're talking about concerns you had and why you said those things to your mother at that time.
Uh-huh.
You were not talking about the defendant, Dejuan Ferguson, correct?
Regarding those concerns?
At the time after Christian was reported missing.
Yeah, I was talking about him.
All right, okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you. You may take a seat.